Welcome to How to Zoom Part 3 of the series designed to help you create your own online presentation for the California Blacksmith Association. I'm Victoria Ritter, and I've been working with Mark Asprey to produce these presentations, and now we want to share how to do that with you. You may have already seen Part 1 and Part 2 where Mark goes over creating photos and videos. Each presentation consists of a series of photos highlighting how to forge something, followed by a summary video. The easiest way to get started is to just list all the steps and then create your own storyboard, which can be photographed. You can then follow that up with a video to accompany the photos. Next, you'll need to edit your photos and videos. And you're going to want a naming convention that makes it easier to find later. I'm recommending, actually this is Mark's recommendation, start with the name of the project. Since I'm using how to build a presentation, my photos were named how to. Then the number of the step, and then a little bit more about the item. If you notice, step 2 has 2 photos here. With your presentation all ready to go, you're going to have everything needed to write an article and share that with the CBA membership. Become part of that rich history. And since this presentation is the model, I have done the same, and there is an article available on the calsmith.org website. So let's start a new presentation. Select New. And you'll be presented with all of these different templates. We can add those later. So we're just going to pick blank and then create. You are presented with a title slide. And I'm going to orient you to what we're seeing here. The first is the slide here is the thumbnail for the working slide here. It's highlighted in red, and that's how you know which slide is being presented in the working pane. It has a number, and as we add slides, they will each get their own number and will line up here. When they're lined up here, you can click and drag them to reorder them, or click into the slide you want to work on, which will put that into the working pane. The working pane also can be adjusted, and you have another section down here at the bottom where you can add notes. Notes let you type in whatever you want to remind yourself of what it is you want to speak to when you're in this particular slide. You also have different functionality available in the header bar, and each ribbon, which is what this is called, is guided by a tab. We are in the Home tab. I find that most of what I need is in the Home tab because that's what it was designed to do. It has the most used functionality available. The other tabs I use are Design, and that's where we access those templates you saw at the beginning, and you can add them at any time. And then I go to View. If you want to get into some of these other tabs and look at some of the other functionality, you can. I tend to think that what we're presenting as blacksmiths is going to be enough for our audience, but if you want to get into some different functionality, I would recommend you check out tutorials on those particular options. We're now ready to add more slides and build our presentation. You add the slide and then you flesh that out with text boxes, shapes, photos, films, etc. I have 2 screenshots here, or photos of 2 different ways in which you can get that started. The normal or default view has the thumbnails here on the left, and you can add a slide and then add to each slide as you go along, and I'm going to show you how to do all that and add a slide in a little bit. But before we get into that, I'm going to suggest that you create the outline of your presentation using the outline view, and it looks like this. Instead of thumbnails, you just have an outline. And this means you can either cut and paste from another document if you typed out all of your steps, or you can start typing from a handwritten note. And let me show you how to do that. Since we just looked at the difference between the normal view, which is what we're in, and the outline view, I'm going to show you how by switching to the outline view, we can easily take advantage of the list of steps that you created. I'm going to hit enter and it takes me to a new slide. If I want to stay on the same slide, all I have to do is tab. It takes me back up to that slide and I can enter in more information on this slide. I'm now done with this slide, but when I hit enter, notice that I stay in this slide. If I hold the shift key and select tab, it takes me back out to a new slide. The slide is now ready for me to type in my next step. I hit enter again. I'm creating a third slide. And so on. You can see how this might be a very quick and easy way to add slides when you've already got an outline, you already know what all the steps are. I would also advise that if you were going to add a video later, even if you don't want a title for that slide, you could add it as a placeholder. We're now ready to add a photo to our presentation, and we're going to add the photos that we just looked at, the screenshots of the outline view and the normal view. The layout that we have in this slide is the title and content. By accessing the drop-down caret next to the layout, we can pick the comparison view. So I'm going to actually add 2 photos and then add text to describe those photos. I also want to change this around. I want this to say normal versus outline. And in here, I'll say normal view. And here I'll add text that says outline. Now it's just a matter of opening the correct photo. And since I have been naming my slides how to with the number, if you notice the number, I was sure of this number because it was slide number 4. I am going to pick the normal view and insert that. And then I'm going to go right back to that selection panel by accessing the picture icon. And I'm going to insert the photo labeled how to for outline view. And insert. So now I have my 2 photos. They're a little small, so I think what I want to do is crop them. By highlighting the picture, picture format tools become available, one of which is crop. This has these dark outlined borders and the corner and then the middle of the border. All I have to do is match my cursor up to that and then click and drag, and I'm going to make this smaller so that I can move it over here by clicking and dragging. Again, grab onto those handles and making this a little bigger. I think you can see what's happening here just a little better. The only other thing I want to add is a little bit of that notes view because I want to be able to speak to that. So there you have it. I have my normal view all ready to go. Same thing for the outline view. I'm going to make them about the same size and just drop it into position. We're now ready to add a video to our slides, and I have a placeholder on this slide, number 5, called Outline View Video. And I have the type of layout required, which is the content slide with these different icons. And the icon I'm interested in is this Insert Movie from File. I'm going to select that, and I can just add it. I would like this video to take up the whole slide, so I'm going to highlight this text box, right-click, and cut. I can now turn this slide into a blank, which removed all of the text boxes. If I turned it to blank before I got rid of the verbiage in there, the verbiage would have stayed. So you can remove it before or after you turn it into a blank layout. Now all I have to do is drag and drop this into place. If I secure it up in one corner and then grab the handle, click and drag that, I can resize this to fit into this slide. I now want to add a third text box to my title slide. I have the one text box that says how to zoom and a second text box that has the part 3 and myself and Mark Asprey's name in it. I want a third one up at the top. From the Home tab on the Home ribbon is an option to add a text box. I'm going to click that, turning it on. And when I come down here, you'll notice my cursor has a darker arrow with a little A in it that is exactly matching the A in the text box. I'm going to click and drag a text box into position. Now that my text box is available, I can type into it. Hit enter to go to the next line. You notice the text box automatically expands for me. And I want to say Cal. I do not want this C capitalized. It looks like I'm going to have to tell them that again. And I have a text box ready to go with the information that I want. I'm going to center it, and when I move the text box around, the little red dashed lines come up, and that helps me find the center. Now that I've found the center, I'm going to format this text box by hitting this center text option, and now everything is neatly lined up. So now I'm going to add a shape to this. I don't really need one for this presentation, but I want to show you how to do that. I'm still in the Home tab, and shape is available right next to text box. I hit the little down arrow, and I have a whole bunch of options available to me. But I tend to just use this plain arrow, and then I can adjust it later. So I highlight that arrow, and now I have a little black cross. I click and I drag, putting that arrow in place. The initial set down point is just the plain end, and then the arrow is where I dragged it to. The arrow, when highlighted, has handles on it, and I can move the arrow around anywhere I want. I can make it smaller by clicking and dragging those handles and putting that into place. This arrow is kind of skinny for me, so notice that while the shape is highlighted, Shape Format tab becomes available to me. I'm going to select this Shape Outline box and add weight to my arrow. Our slideshow is now complete, so we can add our background. If you'll recall, that was under the Design tab, and here we can see all the different options for the templates. We can pick some and try them out. If I don't want to use any of these templates, I can simply turn it back to my blank presentation, come over here to Format Background, select Gradient Fill, and I have a bunch of colors to pick from. This yellow is a little too bright, so let's pick orange. Kind of reminds me of the fire. And apply to all. Now it's time to practice. You have your whole presentation together, and you're going to find something you don't quite like, and this will be your chance to run through that and make it what you do like. You also need to get used to this format. It's not at all the same as standing next to someone and showing them how to forge a thing. So it's your chance to talk to the computer, much like I'm doing, and put that presentation together. If one of the changes you find involves adding a new slide, it's as simple as going to New Slide, adding it, fill it in with the information that you want, and you can click and drag it into place. You now have everything you need to write an article, and assuming you've done that, you can submit it to the editor at calsmith.org. Now we're ready to talk about presenting. This is a photo of my setup. I have two screens only because I had this old TV that I was no longer using, so I took a HDMI cord and hooked it up to my laptop. That allows me to have the presenter view, and the presenter view has the current slide, which you notice looks the same as what's on the television, what's coming up next, the next slide, and any notes that I took. But the audience only sees what's over here on my big screen. If I didn't have this set up and I only had a single screen, I would probably want to print out my notes if I had a lot of them, so that's what I would recommend you do if you don't have two screens, and that would be perfectly fine. Make sure that your camera's hooked up in such a way that you're facing the camera when you're looking at the monitor, and you'll want to test your microphone. You're now ready to Zoom. Hopefully you've had a chance to Zoom as a participant, either through the CBA or maybe through work or some other fun group that you're a part of. But at minimum, you'll need to have the app installed on your device. And if you haven't used it at all, I would recommend that you check out some of their tutorials. They're pretty short and very explanatory. When you get ready to give the presentation, you'll do a dry run with your team to make sure that you understand all the presenter tools, which I'm going to explain next. I have a Zoom application up and running, and this will allow me to show you a couple things that the presenter needs to know when hosting a Zoom. First is that you might notice a security button that you haven't seen before. This just allows you to give the participants some other functionality if you wish them to have it. You have prepared a presentation, so you're going to be the one sharing your screen. When you go to share screen, you're presented with a list of options. But before you do this, I'm going to shut this back down, you need to make sure that from your PowerPoint presentation, you have the presentation mode going. And you get there by hitting this little icon on the bottom here that says slideshow. I now have my presentation up and running, ready to select for the Zoom participants. So back to Zoom, share screen, And I can select the whole desktop, but I would recommend that you select the PowerPoint slideshow, which is right here. You're gonna share. Once that's up, you'll notice you have a floating toolbar that you can move this around. I'm just clicking and dragging that. You can move it around anywhere you want, and more functionalities now available to you. If you're done sharing, you simply stop share. If you want to change what you're sharing, you say new share. And if you want to use some of the annotation tools, you can select that and another menu opens up. Sometimes I like to use Spotlight, which gives me a little red highlighted pointer. So that's all I have. Thanks for playing. If you've got a fun project you think others might enjoy seeing, contact the Zoom manager at calsmith.org via email and we'll help you get that started.